Greeting podsters and podlars, and welcome to Cazza and Tracy Talk Gavin and Stacey. I'm Tracey.
And I'm Caroline, aka Cazza.
And we're friends who, like Gavin and Stacey, met online in the noughties. We connected over small humour, over how life is funny in the minutiae of things, and we also found that we like to read and watch many of the same things. And one of those things was Gavin and Stacey, which is a show that also celebrates small humour as well as kindness and bluster and people being magnificently themselves in all their flawed glory. And now that the show is having its one last hurrah with a final Christmas special, we thought we'd rewatch it all, remind ourselves why we loved it, and find out whether we still do. So we are up to Season 1, Episode 3. And as always, let's begin with Tracy's Tracy. So the episode starts with the now familiar phone call between Gavin and Stacey. Gavin letting Stacey know that the police let him go pretty quickly, and Stacey telling Gavin that she's going to tell her mother they've got engaged. Stacey does tell her mother, but both Gwen and Bryn erupt in disapproval, and we learn that Stacey has in fact been engaged 6 times. While the mood in Wales is not celebratory, over in Essex, Pam and Mick are over the moon and get set to have a party, inviting everyone for Wales to come and stay in Essex for the weekend. On the day of the party, Pam is a bundle of nerves to the point that when Stacey's family arrives, she mistakenly declares herself to be a vegetarian. There's a toast to Gavin and Stacey, and the party begins. Gavin makes a speech announcing that they've set the date for 8 weeks' time, further announcing that they'll be getting married in Wales. There's an almighty argument between the parents until Bryn steps in. Meanwhile, none of them have noticed that both Smithy and Nessa have slipped outside, but they do all notice when Smithy and Nessa return, Nessa with her back covered in mud and Smithy with mud on his knees. The episode ends with both Nessa and Smithy declaring that they each fell over. So, another episode with a lot going on, but what was this episode about for you?
Well, again, it's the culture clash, and they're introducing that sort of tension about Stacey's previous engagements, and yeah, I guess that becomes quite a story in itself, her previous engagements, and gets spun out into a couple of episodes afterwards. So, you know, maybe there's that thing about, well, we know Gavin's okay, but can we trust Stacey? But you never have to doubt her for long. You know, she's engaged before, but this is the first time she's really been in love, she says.
Yeah. Yeah, although Bryn, I think, says, yeah, well, that's what he said about. Yeah. Well, each one of them says that's what he said about. Yeah, but
yeah, no, that's one of my favourite jokes. Is when they all at the exact time Gwen, Bryn, and Nessa will say that's what you said about, and they each give a different name.
Yeah, but
and they do it in perfect harmony. It's so good.
But I agree, you do trust Stacey's love for Gavin, even with all those engagements. It is an episode that highlights the contrasts that we're supposed to see between Essex and Wales, but also between the two couples. So between Gavin and Stacey and between Nessa and Smithy, who I guess, I don't know if I had really clocked, but really do become, I mean, it's called Gavin and Stacey, but the will they, won't they story isn't theirs, is it?
It's absolutely Nessa and Smithy.
Yeah.
And look, we haven't really discussed it, but those two have come together and had incredible sex.
Yeah.
But they cannot bear each other, and their judginess about each other, you know,
it's brutal.
It's brutal. And look, Nessa is kind of a terrible character in her own way, but Smithy is far, far worse.
Yeah.
So when Nessa looks down on Smithy, I kind of feel, no, that's fair enough. But when he looks down on her, I think you aren't fit to shine her shoes.
Yeah.
Even though she is quite awful in some ways.
Yeah, you're right. She is. Yeah, but I do kind of accept that dynamic the same way.
Yeah. Is that because we're chicks? I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, because
yeah,
I guess, you know, a lifetime of experience of really wrong for men like Smithy who are
convinced.
expect that they should have absolute fine, that they're deserving of a 10 when being a sort of a 2.
Yep. Yep.
Is the crudest way of, and I, obviously don't approve of people being given labels of 2 and 10, but, they think that they're worth so much.
Yeah.
And they don't look around for what is actually being brought to the table. And I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, and just being drunk and obnoxious and stupid but that whole thing about that they cannot bear each other, but they've just got this incredible physical attraction to each other.
Yeah.
And that culminates in that fantastic scene where they come back in with the mud, and that mud is so beautifully done by costume people. You know exactly what sort of encounter they just had and who was where, and I just thought it was genius. I laughed and laughed.
Yes. So how about holding up across time? How did this episode go for you?
Look, I still believe it's holding up. There are a couple of references that are nasty. The underage girlfriend references are always going to be a problem. And I think there is a reference to a jippo on a donkey, but I think what's happening there is the sort of Kath and Kim style of wrongness, where you as the audience are invited to see how wrong it is and to, I don't know, laugh at them for being like that, or laugh in shock, but that was not a right thing to say. So I think that's valid. I know some people talk about it being punching down, but
I didn't kind of find this episode jarring in any particular way. How about how the characters are developing?
So I absolutely loved Stacey's mother's Gwen, her rage omelette. She's so angry about Stacey getting engaged again, and after a very short time as well. They've only known each other for a very short time, that she makes a very angry omelette, and it's so awesome. And there was just a couple of small things that you get to see the friendship of Gavin and Smithy. That Smithy is so jealous about losing Gav and all that sort of thing that he behaves badly, but then he comes back in and squares up to it. And the way they get over it is a little pinky, holding each other's pinky fingers and having a best friends kind of chant. And pulling out of it, he says, if you're not going to do it properly, then don't even bother. It's like, okay, we'll do it. And they do it. The dad dynamic with Mick and Gavin, and this is one of my favourite things throughout the series, is his pride in Gavin and his love for him, and the fact that they want to have a party for him. And, what about you?
I mean, I did really like that we see there's a bit more to Stacey, and I love that she's had 6 engagements, and I guess
that's amazing, isn't it? Because she is an open-hearted sort of. She's boots in.
Yeah,
she's going for life. That girl.
Well, and it is very. I mean, I didn't grow up in a place like Barrie, but I grew up in a kind of a country. I know it's not a country town, but kind of a regional town, and I don't know. There kind of is this thing that we all. I mean, I didn't really get engaged 6 times, but I don't know. You kind of could have. It's just this, I don't know, I just really loved how it
if there's not much else going on, then maybe
but also
it's the really big deal. You
know? And you just do really fall in love with people. I don't know. There was something very lovely about it. And I did kind of like the way how she even had time to get engaged 6 times. I don't know. She's so young. But I thought it was just a nice little addition to her character.
Yes.
She comes across as this sort of ditzy innocent, but that's not. What about what pulled at your heartstrings?
I like the way that the small ones was the way that Mick handled Pam's panic attack. So because Mick wasn't there when the guests arrived, she somehow got herself into a tiz about and turned herself into a vegetarian without even really liking vegetables, I don't think. And she's absolutely panicked, and you weren't there, and he's so good at calming her down.
Yep.
And you just see the dynamic of that they are such a pair. And there's a little bit of bonding with Pam and Gwen talking about, I can't see what my note says, it's got menopause / something else. Which
the like gin. Yeah. That's when they have a big argument. Yeah. When they have the big argument and Pam says, I'm sorry, I don't know what it came into me. I think it must be the menopause. And Gwen says, I think it's the gin.
Yeah. It's nice to have characters who can say the menopause makes me do shit like that because, it's quite often the butt of a joke there, but it's actually a valid thing. But obviously the big heart moment is Bryn's outburst. Will you just look at yourselves?
Yeah.
And calling them to rights and saying, don't be so petty.
Yeah. It is. It's really lovely, I think. And it's a really nice kind of role for him to play.
Yeah, because he's been just a buffoon the whole time, but then actually he's got the whole dignity about it.
Yep.
Yeah, he's quite noble in that moment. And
he
just,
is.
And everyone falls into line before the majesty of him. He pulls that one out every so often, maybe once in each series he just pulls it out. It's a great moment.
Lovely. What about your favourite joke or scene? I reckon we're going to agree on this one.
It's Pam's little saucy wink, isn't it? Oh, for me.
Oh.
She's telling Gav some story.
Yeah, about when she first met Mick's family and they were in the pantry.
Auntie Christine and Uncle John were, and we never find out what it was, and she won't tell it in front of Mick either.
Yeah.
But Mick interrupts them, and so she just turns to Gavin and says, I'll tell you later, and gives him the sauciest wink you've ever seen. And it's so funny. It just made me laugh and laugh, even though Gav clearly doesn't want to be told.
Doesn't want to be.
That was my biggest laugh line, but I also, as previously said, that thing about them saying, you said that about Kyle / Ahmed / Clifford.
Yeah.
Was that yours?
No, it wasn't. It's Pam's vegetarian scene. It's just, and her whole thing of, but I would just ask you to respect my views. It's just, because it's the setup for, I'm pretty sure it gets a call back for a long time through a lot of the series.
Long gag,
she's just a gem. Like, she's so perfectly cast in this. And like you say, her little winks and her little flourishes.
Yeah. She's a genius, Alison Steadman. She's an absolute genius.
Yeah.
She was born to play this part.
Yeah.
Did you remember seeing her as Mrs. Bennet in a Pride and Prejudice adaptation?
Yeah, I do remember that, but not to this sort of extent.
Okay. So she's glorious in that as well.
She is,
She will absolutely play the guts out of I don't know, just a really full-on woman. I just love her.
Yeah, me too. And I think for me, she really is the standout. Like, every scene she's in, she elevates it. Yeah.
She's amazing.
All right. Well, did you have a question that you thought of to ask me to test my knowledge on Gavin and Stacey?
All right. Can you remember what? Oh, so there was a little bit of a joke about this. Bryn doesn't want to go to Essex.
Oh, yes.
And the way that they convince him is that he can try out his sat-nav. So, again, the whole lure of the sat-nav comes up. So that was also a very nice little joke. And she's like, oh, well, okay, I will come. So while he's waiting in the car before he sets off on the sat-nav, can you remember what the song he was singing? Because Bryn loves to sing.
I can't. And I remember when I was watching it thinking I should take notice of that song. Nah, can't remember.
It's Leo Sayer.
That's it.
Feel like dancing. Yeah.
So mine's much more pedestrian. Do you remember why Gavin and Stacey chose the date of, I think it's April the 8th for their wedding?
Oh, I cannot. It's 28 for.
It'll be 2007, I guess. No, but you're
overthinking. It's not to do with numbers,
no.
Is it? It's. Nope, no, I cannot.
It's the day that Stacey's dad would have been 50.
Oh, yeah. That's so beautiful.
It is.
The Stacey dad stuff is so complicated and they never milk it.
They don't.
And the one time that they hit it quite intensely is one of the most beautiful moments of the show. It comes a bit later on.
Yep.
And there's just these little flicks to it. They're handled so
Yeah, it is. It's nice.
Yeah, they never stomp all over it. It's just such good writing.
Yeah,
I think. And those little things, when you think back on them, I think it's one of the things why you go, this is a really good show.
Yeah. Well, that kind of leads me into what I was going to ask you next, because we're only 3 episodes in, but that does bring us halfway through season 1. So I thought it's not a bad place to stop and ask what you're thinking so far. Are you still loving Gavin and Stacey in 2024?
Absolutely, I do. But I am going to say that it gets better.
Yeah.
So there's a few things in season 1 where I'm not laughing as hard as maybe I would have as a younger person when it was a new show. But season 2, which I'm, looking at ahead to, I just think it just gets better and better. And I'm so stoked for the special.
Yeah, me too.
Special. What about you?
No, I think I'm exactly the same. I'm definitely not laughing as much as I did. Or then I don't know, because like I said when we were talking about when we first came across it, I think I watched season 2 first. And this is not as strong as season 1 in terms of the laughs, but the writing is fantastic. The characters are so complete. The relationships are so true that I would say I'm not enjoying this as much as I reckon I'm going to, or have been enjoying season 2, but this is still genuinely a comfort watch for me.
And you've got to love the casting as well. Like every time I watch it, even if some of the jokes, because they're coming, you might not laugh as much, but you still just sit there going, this is an amazing cast and it's so well written.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm ever not going to love it.
No, same. Yeah. All right. So we've still got a bit to keep us interested, because what is going to happen between Smithy and Nessa? And then also, will Stacey's big secret be revealed to Gavin for his 6 engagements?
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. All right. Talk to you next time.
Talk to you next time.
Bye. Bye.